Welcome to Arc Characters, where we dive beneath the surface of fiction's greatest characters to uncover the psychology, philosophy, and hidden truths that make them unforgettable. Today, we're exploring one of television's most complex anti-heroes, a man driven by revenge, consumed by trauma, and slowly becoming the very monster he swore to destroy. This is the psychology of Billy Butcher. He wasn't born a monster. He was a frightened boy with a frightened brother, and an ocean of shite pounded into him. Early on, Billy Butcher learned to survive in the worst way he could. His childhood home in London's East End was a battleground. Flashing images of an abusive father, cruel Sam Butcher, whip like an angry belt across Billy's memory. Sam stomped around shouting, "The world's an ocean of shite, lads. You either sink or you swim." These words became Billy's cruel lesson. Vulnerability means drowning. When Billy was forced to leave, his little brother Lenny was left behind. Guilt tore at him because Lenny didn't survive. Billy blamed himself and his father. As a teenager, Billy escaped his home and joined the Royal Marines, later the SAS. War was his crucible. In the Falklands, he learned something terrifying. Killing made him feel alive. He tasted a dark pleasure in violence, a secret thrill that felt like strength. He returned a different man, hard-eyed and heavy-lidded, with hands stained more by guilt than blood. He drank himself numb to forget, until he met someone who showed him something else: love. By now, he believes violence is control, a fortress around a shattered soul. Psychologists would say he's carrying combat wounds inside, invisible but searing. PTSD from the war, layered over childhood trauma. Every muscle in his face is tight. He rarely smiles. He wasn't raised gentle. His father once bragged he was tough, that nobody dared cross him. But what kind of father thinks that makes sense for kids? Young Billy grew up learning that the strong rule and the weak obey. That lesson twisted inside him. To protect himself, he must become unbreakable, unfeeling. When he cries as a child, his father calls him a whining coward. When he throws a punch in anger and gets praised, he learns he's alive only when he's feared. Those lessons became a curse. In psychological terms, he's developed hypervigilance and a cruel armor of anger. Every sound behind a door can startle him. Every glance seems like a threat. The phrase echoed in his mind, sink or swim. But Billy has no swim fins here, just rage. As the camera pulls back from that childhood flashback, we see him as an adult in black, face half lit by moonlight. He learned to survive by sinking his own demons first. Does violence make him strong? Or is it a sledgehammer that's shattered his soul? In his early life, Billy's only map was pain. He learned the hard way. Anger can feel like power, but the cost was the tiniest piece of the boy left alive. He craved control so deeply that he became a soldier, a hunter. With each step, it was like walking further from anything resembling hope. Now, that hope might be drowned forever in the ocean of fury he waded into as a child. We might pity the man, but one question remains. Could he have survived another way? If only he'd known how? He found something powerful enough to crack that shell of hatred, and it terrified him. That something was love. Billy's life twisted when he met his wife, Becca. In scenes tinged with golden light, we see Billy, once a walking storm cloud, softened in her presence. Laughter sneaks into his eyes. He pauses in a bar fight to give her a grin. She calls him Billy, casually. To him, a miracle. With Becca, the hard man lets his guard down just a fraction. As their romance blooms, Billy touches a part of his soul he thought dead. Becca's tenderness awakened the idea that maybe, just maybe, he could be something other than a soldier. Critics might call her his anima, the nurturing mirror of his hidden self. Viktor Frankl believed that meaning can be found through love, not just pain. With Becca, Billy tasted what a normal life might feel like. Quiet nights, a home, maybe even a baby. For a man built on vengeance, this felt dangerously fragile. Then tragedy struck, like a lightning bolt. Prime Video flashbacks show us the night that changed him forever. Becca goes to Mallory for help. A superhero's child is born, and the consequences shatter everything. First, Mallory lies. Becca and the baby died in a miscarriage. Billy collapses under that lie as though it were a shot to the heart. All the calm and contentment we saw in those golden scenes vanish. The loss, all Billy has left is rage. The love that calmed him now becomes the razor edge that drives him. Psychology tells us about complicated grief. When someone loses a loved one violently, grief can mutate into obsession. For Billy, Becca's death wasn't just a loss, it's the shattered core of his world. He refuses to accept it fully. He believes the only way to honor her memory is to hunt down the monster he thinks killed her, Homelander. Her name becomes the war cry he utters in nightmares. Yet, this war is built on a lie. And when the truth finally breaks through, when Billy learns Becca isn't dead and that her son, Ryan, is alive, it fractures him again. In one heart-wrenching scene, he's brought to see Becca alive, raising their boy in secret. Her quiet, gentle life stands in direct opposition to his blood-soaked one. Billy's eyes reflect disbelief, hope, and then the unbearable weight of what he's become. He's raised a hammer against dreams when all she ever wanted was to protect that child. Later, as the child's uncontrollable powers accidentally kill Becca, we see Billy's hands tremble around a crowbar. It's like a slow-motion moment of crisis. He might have struck the child who killed his wife, fulfilling his nightmare, until Homelander intervenes. The ice in Homelander's eyes ignites fury in Billy. But Homelander only asks quietly, "Why did you protect that?" Billy answers simply, "I promised." In that raw confession, he acknowledges it. In the end, a sliver of the old Billy remains. He honors love, even when it's the hardest thing to do. That promise to Becca echoes the idea that Billy still believes, deep down, that a good man's word means everything. Symbolically, Becca's necklace passes from his hand to her son's neck. It's as if he's laying down a part of himself and picking up a cross to carry. Some analysts might call this a moment of redemption. One critic observes that this act, protecting the child, is a far cry from the guy in the comics, the version who would have killed that child out of vengeance. Our Billy hesitates, then gently places the charm around Ryan's neck. It's one of the most human acts he ever commits, and perhaps a final salvation. All the while, he's spiraling deeper. Scientists would recognize the dangerous cycle he's in. The compulsion to avenge may soothe him briefly, but like a drug, it also rewires his brain. Research shows that imagining revenge triggers dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical, like an addiction. Each time Billy closes his eyes to fantasize about hurting Soups, he feels that rush. It's medicine for his pain, and also poison. It's easy to understand Billy's path. Heartbreak made him desperate, and in desperation, he grabbed for the only weapon he knew. But love taught him a truth he kept forgetting. The things we hold sacred, are worth more than our hatred. Could Billy Butcher ever let go of his hatred for what he loved? Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to Arch Characters and support the channel. Videos like this take countless hours of research, writing, and editing to make, and every subscription genuinely helps us create more deep dives into the psychology of fiction's greatest characters. Your support means more than you know. Now, let's get back to Billy Butcher. Billy Butcher's crusade is now set on a cataclysmic battlefield. Humans versus gods in Superman's skin. When we see him next, he's not just an ex-soldier or a grieving widower. He's the leader of the boys, dragging ordinary people into an unholy war. Desperate men and women, each bearing their own scars, follow behind him. Among them is wee Huey, the conscience he can barely acknowledge. But there's only one target in Billy's sights: Homelander, the living nightmare who killed his wife and represents everything Billy hates. Even turning Compound V on himself to inject super strength. Psychologically, Billy is spiraling into obsession. He refuses mercy, ranting like a preacher of hate. But is it righteous? Or is Billy losing himself? Carl Urban warns that by season 5, Billy begins to become the very thing he's been trying to destroy. Cold, ruthless, emotionless. Already we see glimpses of that. He walks away from routines of decency. He grows silent where once he shouted. Each kill empties him more. Now that he has temporary powers from Temp V, super strength and flaming fists, it only makes him more dangerous, not safe. For a moment, we think, this is it. He has power. Maybe now he can rest. But the truth is more tragic. The Temp V is not a cure. It's a crucible that burns away whatever humanity remained. It's a running gag that Compound V always brings new horrors. For Billy, it's rubbery tentacles from his chest, a physical sign he's letting the monster in. Each trial of power leaves him more fractured.
It's definitely gonna go.
Where the fuck is Butcher?
There comes a moment in every person's life when they have to make a choice, not between good and evil, but between becoming the person they always feared or letting go of everything they once believed. For Billy Butcher, that moment arrives in season 4. After abusing Temp V, Butcher learns he is dying. The doctors give him only a few months to live. For the first time in years, the man who always believed he could solve every problem with violence has found an enemy he cannot punch. Time. Something changes inside him. He's weaker. He's coughing blood. He's hallucinating. His body is falling apart. But his hatred is stronger than ever. Because now he believes he has nothing left to lose. And that is what makes Butcher more dangerous than he has ever been. A promise to Becca. Throughout the season, one thing keeps returning to his mind. Becca. Before she died, she made Butcher promise to protect Ryan. Not control him. Not use him. Protect him. That promise is the last piece of humanity Butcher still holds on to. Every decision he makes is haunted by those final words. Even when Ryan begins drifting toward Homelander, Butcher refuses to completely give up on him. Because Ryan isn't just Becca's son. He's the last connection Butcher has to the woman he loved. Saving Ryan is the closest thing Butcher has to saving Becca. The problem with Butcher. Here's what makes Butcher such a fascinating character. He genuinely wants to do the right thing, but almost every time, he chooses the wrong way to do it. Instead of trusting people, he manipulates them. Instead of asking for help, he pushes everyone away. Instead of dealing with pain, he buries it under anger. That's been his pattern since the beginning, and Season 4 doesn't change that. It makes it worse. His team stops trusting him. The boys have followed Butcher through impossible situations. They've fought Soups, taken impossible risks, lost friends. But now, even they begin questioning him. Because Butcher is becoming unpredictable. Sometimes he wants to save Ryan. Sometimes he wants revenge. Sometimes...
Because you ain't got the bollocks, son.
Nice try, Butcher. But it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, ain't that what your wife said?
All that bullshit you pull in the mess you always leave behind for me to clean up? You know why I kept coming back?
He seems ready to sacrifice everything. Even the people closest to him don't know which version of Butcher they'll get. That's what trauma does when it's ignored for years. Eventually, it starts making your decisions for you. Then comes one of the biggest revelations of the season. Joe Kessler. Throughout the story, Kessler appears as someone encouraging Butcher to stop holding back, to stop showing mercy, to finish the mission no matter the cost. But later, we discover something shocking. Kessler isn't really there. He's a hallucination, a creation of Butcher's damaged mind. But Kessler represents something very real. He is every dark thought Butcher has buried for years, every desire for revenge, every excuse to become more ruthless, every part of himself that says kindness is weakness. In many ways, Kessler isn't another character. He's the monster living inside Butcher. The birth of a new monster. By the end of the season, that monster wins. The strange organism growing inside Butcher because of Temp V doesn't just destroy his body. It changes him. His powers become terrifying, violent, uncontrollable. It's almost symbolic. For years, Butcher hated Soups because they abused power. Now, he has become something just as frightening. The line between hunter and monster begins to disappear. Billy Butcher spent years telling himself, "I'll become a monster if that's what it takes." Season 4 proves those weren't just words. He finally crossed that line. The tragedy is, he may not even realize it. Billy Butcher always believed monsters were easy to recognize. They wore capes. They smiled for cameras. They pretended to be heroes, people like Homelander. But life isn't that simple. Sometimes, the scariest monsters don't appear overnight. They are created, one painful decision at a time. And that's exactly what happened. Billy Butcher. Did Butcher ever win? Think about everything Butcher sacrificed. His marriage, his friendships, his health, his future, even his own humanity. He believed that if he gave enough, he would finally defeat Homelander. But look at where he ends up. He's dying. Ryan is slipping away. His friends barely trust him. And Homelander is stronger than ever. For someone who dedicated his entire life to revenge, This is the cruelest ending imaginable. The cycle of hatred. One lesson repeats throughout the boys. Hatred creates more hatred. Homelander was abused as a child. That abuse created a monster. Butcher spent years obsessed with revenge. That obsession slowly created another monster. Different people, different stories, but the same result. Pain that was never healed eventually became pain passed on to others. What makes Butcher such a great character? Billy Butcher isn't memorable because he's the strongest. He isn't the smartest. He isn't even the hero. He's memorable because he feels human. Many people know what it's like to lose someone, to carry anger, to want revenge, to make bad decisions while believing they're the right ones. Most of us just don't live in a world where those feelings come with superpowers. That's why audiences connect with him. Behind all the violence is a broken man who never learned how to heal. The real meaning of Billy Butcher teaches us something uncomfortable. Revenge feels powerful. It gives pain a purpose. It convinces us that once our enemy is gone, everything will be okay. But revenge rarely heals anyone. It only demands more sacrifices, more anger, more loss. Until one day, you no longer recognize yourself. That's exactly what happened to Billy Butcher. He didn't lose himself in one moment. He lost himself little by little, one choice at a time. Billy Butcher began this story hunting monsters. By the end, he had become one himself. Not because he was born evil, not because he wanted power, but because he believed the only way to destroy darkness was to become darker than it. And maybe that is the greatest tragedy of Billy Butcher.
Because in the end, the person he could never escape wasn't Homelander. It was himself.
If Billy Butcher's story teaches us anything, it's this. Hatred can give you a reason to keep moving, but if you let it define your life, it will eventually consume everything you are trying to protect. Thank you for watching Arc Characters. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Billy Butcher's psychology, consider subscribing for more cinematic character analyses. And let me know in the comments, which character should we explore next? Until next time, every great character tells us something about ourselves. The question is, are we willing to listen?